Give a shout out to possibly Jen's favorite fellow Jew, Medea Benjamin, and Code Pink, Jews for Peace. The protests in New York have reached a boiling point. The arrests are out en masse, but this is not going to end well at all. So here's some footage.
That's JVP. That's Jewish Voice for Peace. That's my team. Get it. They have to figure out a way to come out of this and And yet we're supposed to believe that the Jews on Columbia feel unsafe.
Palestine will be free. From the sea to the river.
I see somebody asking how they got into Trump Tower. The same way they get into all these places like the Capitol Rotunda. When they walk in, they're dressed all like different people. When they walk in, see, they take off, they all have clothes that they end up dropping. When they go into one of these, I think, when they go into these places, they're all dressed completely different. And then when a certain time happens, they all take off their shirts, they're dressed the same, and they start whatever action that they're going to do. So that's how they get into those places. But yeah, I mean, all of these things is just going to be in this vicious circle with the increased security state and the increased cop cities and the increased crackdowns. And we just have to keep doing it. And people that are citizens need to put themselves in front of people that aren't. And that's just how it's going to have to be.
And this is also, yes, well, of course. And they're all the same. They're all the same. They're these extremely... The other thing about Upper East Side Jews that a lot of people don't know is that they're actually not that flashy. Like, you wouldn't know necessarily that they were loaded, but the woman that you're referring to that showed up, that, you know,
oh, she was ridiculous.
Yes, that is a very extremely privileged person.
I honestly feel safe saying that violence that has occurred at not just these marches and these encampments and these rallies, but this goes back to Black Lives Matter as well. The violence that has occurred are, I believe, plants and spooks and all sorts of people that are there to make it look a certain way. Because I cannot tell you the amount of protests and marches that I have been to. A lot. Big ones, really big ones. I've been to a lot of protests, and I have never seen...
It's just the start.
I have never seen violence organically based on the people at the protest, right? So I have never seen Black Lives Matter people, pro-Palestine people, any people in the movement engaging in violence. The only violence that I have seen on TV are what appears to me to either be Zio-Nazis or people pretending. And I think what they do is they kind of like, they what do you call it? They infiltrate. And they're there to cause a problem, to make the movement look bad. That we know has happened because the Palestinian people and the supporters, they're just not, they're not violent.
And this is
they're just not violent.
And this is their defense.
One question about the pro-Palestinian protester who was arrested. President Trump said that he was distributing pro-Hamas flyers and that he wanted him out of the country. What more can you tell us about any violation of his visa? What crime did he commit? And another follow-up with Mayor Adams, you said that you were going to be...
His action was in direct...
Can wait, stop it for a second. I need to correct her. He does not have a visa. He has a green card. That's a permanent resident. So again, we shouldn't even be splitting those hairs. The fact that she even brought that up should not. This is irrelevant. People have got to stop talking about it. I don't care what it doesn't matter. But yeah, and the fact that there was no criminal arrest, there was no criminal charge because he didn't do anything wrong. So now they're trying to come up with a reason as to why they can take somebody and detain them and send them across the country that hasn't been charged with a crime.
Well, let's hear what Mr. Holman has to say further.
State's foreign policy. That's a Secretary of State. That's a charge on the Secretary of State. We consider him a national security threat.
He's a national security threat. Oh, that's new.
But they didn't arrest him then.
You know what? I have to tell you, I actually agree with Mr. Holman. Mahmoud is a national security threat because of what we think is important national security, the state of Israel. It's not important to just about everybody, but to the people in power, it's very important. And Mahmoud's message is a threat to the Zionist state.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, Falcon Eye. He's a threat to security, but yet was never arrested on the site, has not been charged with any crime whatsoever, and has no evidence of violence or anything having to do with him. So in what way could he be a threat if he hasn't done anything?
When you're on campus and they say, and I hear freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Can you stay in a movie theater and yell fire? Can you slander somebody verbally? Free speech has limitations, but when you go to a college campus, you incite protesting and locking down and taking over buildings and damaging property and handing out leaflets for Hamas, who is a terrorist organization.
Again,
coming
lies.
to this country either on a visa or becoming a resident alien is a great privilege.
You said visa again.
No, or he said resident alien. I am in fear. You fucking moron. Yes, those things are privileges. It is a privilege to get those things. It is. That is true. It is. However, the First Amendment applies to everyone, first of all. And second of all, you need due process. That's also part of what you're missing here. So even if he did do something, which he didn't, then there would be due process for that, because that's how it fucking works. Mm-hmm. This makes me so angry.
But there are rules associated with that. You might be able to get away with that stuff on the last administration, but you won't under this administration.
Monkeys. They're monkeys clapping. That's an insult to monkeys. That's an insult to monkeys. I shouldn't say that. Oh my God.
Much like they assume that the Luigi story is going to go away, this story is not going to go away.
No.
In fact, it's going to get so much worse. It is going to get so much.
I don't see how they need an off-ramp and they don't have one. Like right now, Trump is they're about wishing they had an off-ramp, and I don't see what they can do. They're going to have to figure out a way to backpedal in some way to get out of it.
Here's the thing, Zaina, and I will say this to everybody.
Abso-friggin-lutely
Get
they
right
did.
down to it. The fact of the matter is, despite all the things that you see right now, the Trump administration is peanuts compared to how bad the Biden administration was. The difference now, and again, this is the Trump effect, if you will. Everyone fucking pays attention to him.
Yeah. Zaina, I was in Atlanta and was standing like behind people getting tear gassed. I did not get tear gassed, but I absolutely. And in blue Atlanta, where they refused to even have a vote, even though they had all the signatures they needed from everybody in the vicinity of Cop City, but they still refused to have a vote in blue Atlanta. So yeah, this is not a blue thing.
I definitely agree, Falcon, and I do think that what's going to come of this is just, like I said, you have the Mangione story, you have the Khalil story.
Oh, he's got a hell of a lawsuit.
And this is just going to spiral and spiral and spiral. Tell me if Trump is such a stable genius. Again, Trump acts on instinct. And so his instinct was to say, let's pull $400 million in funding from Colombia because that's going to make it better. No, that's just going to enrage people more.
But see, this is why, when we've been saying all along, when I say Trump facilitates the revolution, and I really haven't always been entirely sure what that looks like. And it's still like, we're still going through, this is not something that happens overnight. But this is how it happens. Every group of people that he is cutting off from their services, cutting off from their benefits, firing from their jobs, whether it's he just let go a whole bunch of veterans with PTSD. Okay. If you don't think that every single one of these things is not going to create more Luigi Mangiones and that those are eventually going to coalesce. That's the revolution. Everything that he's doing is just adding more people part of that process. So it's just facilitating it.
It is. We're getting, we are, the dam is going to break
Yeah.
at some point in the near future.
Okay, so wait until he uses military with real guns. Well, this is where he's going to be in a little bit of a predicament. And this is where he would have been in a predicament on January 6th if that really was what I would consider to be an insurrection, which I don't. But we would have to have the military full on support what he's doing.
Look at the response of the people who actually carry guns in this country when it came to Trump attacking Thomas Massie.
It didn't go well.
What do you think's going to happen
When he goes after,
if he really goes after things that are of importance to them? I don't mean to continually rain on the parade of liberals and even leftists, but the fact of the matter is, compared to the people who have guns, you're just a bunch of pussies and cucks. And I mean that not in an
he means that in the
offensive way.
nicest way possible.
What I mean is that you're not going to, there is a, if anybody has ever read The Prince by Machiavelli, there is something to be said by how are you willing to do what is necessary to affect change? And if what you're being shown that needs to be done in order to bring about that change is not being done, no matter how many people you get protesting in the street, no matter how many people get arrested, no matter how many people do these things, the only thing that is going to change things radically in the United States is when the people who are armed decide that they're not going to tolerate it from the government anymore. And when that happens, that's when change is going to happen, because then you're going to find out if they're really going to set up these cop cities to declare martial law on the people of the United States.
And
that's what it's going to come down to.
Well, right. But what I was going to say is that's what the point of the cop cities are most importantly, because I don't think that the military, first of all, for a president to use the military on its own citizens it's just, there's a lot of people that serve that have served that would not be with that.